Hi, this is part one of the nervous system quiz. Let's read the directions. Label the diagram below with the following terms: axon terminal, dendrite, ion channel, neurotransmitter, synaptic cleft, and vesicle. Then answer the questions below. Number 7. Describe the function of the vesicles. And those are the vesicles right there. 8. Explain the role of neurotransmitters in the nervous system. 9. What role do ion channels play in the transmission of signals in the nervous system? 10. What would happen if a drug caused too much of a neurotransmitter to be released? Uh, if you have your book, you want to turn to page 112 and 113, because all of the information you'll need is here under the nerve impulse, and especially this diagram. It describes how electricity moves down the axon of a neuron and jumps from one neuron to another across this thing called the synapse over to another neuron, which is represented right here, through these chemicals called neurotransmitters. So again, the answers are on page 112 and 113. All right, this is part 2, the reflex arc. Label the diagram below with the following terms: interneuron, motor neuron, sensory neuron, sensory receptors, spinal cord, and responding muscle. Then answer the questions below. 7. A sensory neuron receives a signal from a blank and sends this signal onto a blank. 8. A motor neuron receives a signal from a blank and sends this signal onto a blank. Number 9. Explain the role of an interneuron in a reflex arc. This is a reflex arc right here. 10. How are reflexes different from other actions? Now the answer to these questions are on page 119. You have the diagram right here that you'll use for the quiz. And this section right here talks about the difference between voluntary actions and involuntary actions. Voluntary actions are things that you control. You will them to happen. So when you raise your arm, that's a voluntary action. When you raise your arm to reach for something high, that's a voluntary action. A reflex action is something that you don't consciously control. It's involuntary, in meaning not voluntary. All right, let's go to part 3 of the quiz. In part 3, you have to answer these 6 questions, and then there's a bonus 7th question right here, if you want to answer that. Question 1, what are the parts of the central nervous system? 2, what is the job of the central nervous system? The answer to these 2 questions are on page 115. The central nervous system is the brain and the spinal cord, and you'll find out what the brain and the spinal cord do when you read this page. Question 3, what is the peripheral nervous system? And 4, what is the purpose of the nervous system? On page 120, you'll learn about the peripheral nervous system, and a big clue is peripheral, periphery, The word periphery means on the outside. Peripheral means on the outside of the central nervous system. So all of these things that are branching off from the spinal cord are the peripheral nervous system. And the last part of the quiz, 5 and 6, you fill out this chart on page 5, identifying each part of a neuron. That's on page 111. And this chart, identifying the organs, some organs of the nervous system, is on page 115. So this chart right here, page 111. This chart, page 115. And the 7th question is a bonus question if you want to answer it. It's about marijuana, so it's pretty fun. Number 7, marijuana users often describe the experience of smoking marijuana as initially relaxing and mellow, creating a feeling of haziness and lightheadedness. The user's eyes may dilate, causing colors to appear more intense, and other senses may be enhanced. Later, feelings of a paranoia and panic may be felt by the user. The interaction of THC in marijuana with the brain is what causes these feelings. Cannabinoid receptors on some neurons are activated by a neurotransmitter called anandamide. Foreign chemicals like THC can mimic or block actions of neurotransmitters and interfere with normal functions. A. Explain how marijuana might cause the symptoms by interacting with certain neurons in your brain. So for that, you need to understand how a neurotransmitter works. That question. The answer to that, to understand how a neurotransmitter works, you want to go back to page 113 to understand how neurotransmitters work and what they do when they're released. And question B, explain how THC can act as a neurotransmitter and the effect that this can have on a neuron. The answer to that question will be on 118, which talks about how neurotransmitters, or things that work as neurotransmitters or resemble neurotransmitters, can end up being addictive, meaning you can't get enough of them. Okay, now, good luck.